The Curses and the Covenants, A History Weaver Mystery, Book 2, by Connie Worden, read by the author. Chapter 5. The three-bedroom bungalow on Mallard Avenue with old-world charm proved to be the exception to houses on Mallard Avenue, while the other houses truly carried their own old-world charm. Old-world charm, in the case of the bungalow, just meant the need for maintenance. For a three-bedroom house, which I didn't need, the rent was within my price range, but considering the state of the house, and considering it was Beaver Row, it was exorbitant. In fact, I found everything about the house uninviting. Not just its rent and state of repair, but the dingy paint and carpets, small rooms and windows, and shape and look of the house and yard were depressing. It was the one ugly house on Mallard Ave. Clearly not the place for me. I considered calling the number to check out the mobile home in the trailer park, but decided against it. I was sure there was no possibility it would be less depressing than the house on Mallard. And those were my only two options on rentals according to the Bugle. There must be other places for rent in Beaver Row that hadn't made it into the paper. But how did a person set about hearing of them, seeing nothing was showing up online? I knew how Beaver Row worked. Word of mouth was the advertising most people depended on. It was all who you knew. Vacant rental houses would normally be snatched up before they had a chance to make it into the newspaper. But seeing I was out of the grapevine loop, how could I find out about houses or suites for rent? Kim and I exited the house, and I said as we were climbing back into her car, "Okay, thanks for the look around. I'll get back to you after I give it a think. By the way, do you know of anything else for rent? That's the only rental you handle, right?" "Uh-huh. Have you checked the ads in the paper?" "Yeah, I started with that. There wasn't much." "Yeah, sorry. Other than that one, rentals aren't in my line, so I'm afraid I'm not too helpful there." "Okay, right. I see. I'll keep my ear to the ground for you, though. In my work, I hear about things, of course." "Oh, good. Good. Thanks. I'd appreciate that. I'm staying at my mother's, so if you're looking to get a hold of me, that's where I can be reached." "Great. I'll definitely bear you in mind if I hear of anything." "Thanks, Kim. I appreciate it. Well, see you later then," I said, preparing to leave her car after she'd parked behind her office. "Oh, but wait. Do you have to rush off? Come back in the office for a minute. There's always a pot of coffee on. We can have a catch-up." She held the glass doors of the real estate office open for me to enter. So helplessly, I did. Well, it wasn't like I had big plans for the afternoon otherwise. Might as well. I dreaded explaining my life to Kim Dorset, but I'd better get it over with if I was moving back to Beaver Row. Start checking off the list of old acquaintances I'd have to make small talk with. "I haven't even heard what's new in your life. It's been years, hasn't it? Have I even seen you since high school? You didn't make it for our 10th year reunion, I know," Kim continued, pouring 2 cups of coffee into foamy cups. "Oh, well, I've been fine. Nothing new lately, really. Other than a possible move back to Beaver Row. I've been living on the lower mainland, but I don't have a lot going on there anymore. Well, not that I ever did. How about you? How have you been? What's new with you?" "I've been doing really well. Married Scotty Dorset. Do you remember him? He was 2 grades ahead of us. We started dating as soon as I graduated high school. He was already working in construction. My baby girl just turned 2 last month. She's a real little going concern, that one." Kim chuckled and pointed to a picture on her desk as we entered her office. She gestured for me to take the seat across from her. "What a cutie," I said, as per the requirements of polite social interaction. "So, how about you? Any significant other? Any kids?" No, you know me. The elderly spinster writer of romance. If I got married, I'd be out of a job. The fantasy would be over and I'd have nothing left to write about." It was my stock-in-trade reply when people asked me about my marital status. "That's right! I'd almost forgotten you were our local celebrity. Very exciting to know a famous author right from lil old Beaver Row." Right. As I think I may have mentioned, I dread these kinds of conversational turns. To change the subject, I got up and began browsing at the photos on Kim's wall. I didn't have to feign interest long. My eye was soon caught by one particular picture advertising one of her properties. "What a view! Where is this?" I asked. There was no house in the picture, only pasture land with a horse in the foreground, but the backdrop to the pasture was what riveted my attention. A view of a piece of the Ramshorn Mountains on the east, the sheer escarpments captured on film just as the setting sun turned their rocky faces bright with the rosy light fading to deep purple. "That must be some place to live," I said. "Not yet. Unfortunately, there's no house on it, just an empty lot. The present owners just used it for their horses. Well, it's more than a lot, 2 acres on the edge of Beaver Row. It is a spectacular view, though, isn't it? Beautiful chunk of land for someone looking for a little land to build on. Totally undeveloped, but not far from an electric line and close enough to Beaver Row for access to town water. It would have to be on its own septic field, though, however, which needs an engineer." 2 acres, eh? "Nearly." "Gorgeous." "Uh-huh. The acreage is right where Bow Street meets Eversley Road. If you like, I could take you out there to have a look at it." I laughed, embarrassed. "Sorry, I didn't mean to sound as though I was thinking of purchasing land, especially land with no house on it. The view just caught my attention, that's all. No, I'm not in a position to buy anything, and I certainly couldn't afford to build a new house. I was just being nosy, sorry to give the wrong impression." I waved goodbye and got out of there in a hurry before Kim talked me into doing something foolish. The view was spectacular, I had to admit. November 16th, 1897. I'm sorry I haven't written in over a month, dear diary. Before we decided on our destination and left Halifax, I didn't have much to report. And once we were embarked on our journey, I didn't find the train travel conducive to writing in my diary, nor the steamboat travel, nor the wagon ride which took us on our last leg. But what a time we've had! We first got off the train in Vancouver, BC, as the locals like to call their province. I suppose I had better learn the lingo so as to fit in with my new countrymen and women. Our accents from the north of England, of course, instantly mark us as foreigners. To my untrained ear, the Canadian accent is practically indistinguishable from the US American accents that I've heard. But Englishmen, Scotsmen, and Irishmen, as well as people from many other European nations, largely the eastern ones, are very common in our new land, so we hardly stand out greatly. We are quite the mix. Well, we first landed in Vancouver and spent a number of days there, getting our bearings and enjoying time at the seaside. Vancouver is a beautiful frontier, up-and-coming town. I've no doubt it will attract many new settlers for its stunning scenery and accessible location. Its mountains, while not the Rockies, are immense as well. Already snow-capped, they took my breath away on first sight. And with the long, unbroken stretches of golden beaches and wide, wide ocean, the scenery is something straight out of a storybook. I must own myself smitten with my new home province. Our accommodations were not as lavish as they had been at the hotel in Halifax, but they were serviceable. The rooming-house was Spartan, a little primitive and not exactly clean, but I have to expect some adjustments to be made to frontier life. After we'd spent a week or 2 in Vancouver, while all sought information for a likely spot for a young family to settle, we boarded another train for the southern interior region of BC. There have been discoveries of gold in this region, besides many other mining opportunities, and I am sure this held some sway in his decision. I don't believe he has any plan of taking on a labourer's job in the mines, but the dream of trying his hand at prospecting and striking it lucky, and striking it rich, still has a hold on his mind. But he's sensible of the fact that he has a young wife with a child on the way, and so practically is hoping to take up prospecting as a hobby in his spare time while putting his hand to the plough. We're too late in arriving this year to do any farming, but we erected a simple shelter before the snow flies that will see us through the winter, and we can survive on the sale of timber from our land to the sawmill in the next town to see us through until our land is producing. But I'm ahead of myself. From Vancouver, we headed east again, but not so far this time, at least comparatively not so far for this vast, vast land, to where we've made our home. A largely unsettled region, but within a day's wagon ride of a settlement. After disembarking from the end of the line as far as CP Rail would take us, we boarded a steamship to take us to the southern end of the large Lacunac Lake in the Sena region of the province. From there, we had to hire a wagon and driver to take us to our destination, and here we'll stay. The nearest settlement, the one within a day's wagon ride, is where gold was discovered. All thinks it's a good sign that gold has been discovered nearby, but not where we have settled. I know he believes in his heart of hearts that there must be gold yet to discover here. Upon arrival, we stayed in a tent and scouted around for our piece of land. We didn't manage to get the 160 acres we were told we were entitled to. There are other families moving in who have also made their claims, but the 40 acres we have staked out are prime land and we're very happy to have them. 40 is probably about all that it's feasible for us to manage anyway. If we change our minds and want more, it would be a possibility to acquire more, I believe. Frontiersmen are always willing to lend a hand to a new family. Survival depends on cooperation. So, all and some of the other men from miles around put up a simple one-room log cabin to see us through the winter. As I believe babies should arrive sometime in May of next year, we hope to have another room or two added to our domicile in spring. All will be able to pay back the favour to many others, I'm sure. Most of our neighbours either have not arrived to set up housekeeping yet, or belong to the local tribe of native Canadians. Their tribal name is a word I've heard from their lips, but have yet to learn how to pronounce, much less spell with an English alphabet. Some of the men have some command of the English language already, but the women, who have almost none, seem delighted to learn whatever I teach them when they come by, carrying their dark-eyed, silent, solemn, unsmiling babies. I hardly hear the children cry, and I wonder at their secrets for keeping their babies so docile. Perhaps there's something I could learn, as they seem very different from the more rambunctious English children to which I'm accustomed. I'm also trying to learn a few words of their tongue, but find that my tongue can hardly wrap itself around the unfamiliar syllables. I have no doubt they feel the same about the English words, and we often laugh together after our efforts. They with their soundless laughs that only come out in their eyes, as I stumble over the sounds. Altogether, they seem a friendly, welcoming people, and Ole and I are eager to do nothing to threaten cordial relations with the native inhabitants. There have been rumours of disputes in some places over treaties and territories, with some of the treaty land being encroached upon by the European settlers. I'm afraid that what was set down on paper and signed was not always what was agreed upon by word of mouth, and the original inhabitants feel, perhaps rightly, ill-used in these instances. Fortunately, most of the land in our area is not included in any treaty, though we live side by side with a people who are still largely nomadic, so there was no difficulty with finding the perfect piece for our new home. I'm sure the adjustments to white settlers moving in and upending their way of life to a large degree is somewhat of a hardship, but from the peaceable relations we have with the people in our area, they seem to have stoically accepted the change as inevitable.